Kentucky Laszlo here with the M1 Carbine. What a beautiful rifle. This rifle was a gift from my wife for Christmas. This is a Winchester-made M1 Carbine. I love it. It is a wonderful, handy little rifle. And that's why it was made, to be a handy, lightweight rifle. It was kind of made to bridge the gap between the 1911 pistol and the big old M1 Garand. I say Garand, not Garand, but hey, say it any way that you want. But here's the 1911. That's a 1911 A1 pistol. Shoots the 45 ACP. Great pistol. I love it. Probably my favorite pistol. Now this outstanding rifle right up here, the M1 Garand, which fires the 30-06. Just a powerhouse, a Cadillac of a rifle, especially in the World War II era. It's kind of the big daddy to this M1 Carbine, but don't let the M1 Carbine fool you. Some people call it underpowered, but I believe for its created purpose, it's plenty powerful enough. But we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Let's do a quick little safety check. Every one of these weapons was safety checked before the video, but it's always good to kind of check it out, make sure. There's the push button mag release, which is next to a flip safety lever, which we'll talk about why that was changed here in a little bit. But man, this is just a great gift. In wonderful condition. It was re-arsenaled sometime in the past. If you just look at that ramped rear sight there with the adjustable windage and everything, just a great improvement to the original flip design. But just look at that. We're going to talk a little bit more about the history and get into when this rifle was produced, and talk about the other manufacturers. And look at that peep sight. I gotta love a peep sight. A very accurate sight for those days, and even to this day. One of the earliest complaints was the magazines. GIs complained about them wearing out pretty quick, but that'll be an issue we'll talk about in a little bit. Here's my wife firing the M1 Carbine. She's a tall, slender girl, and she manages that recoil very well. Is very accurate with this rifle, and it is just very comfortable to shoot. Yeah, girl. Let's look at the ammo that these weapons fire. We have here the big old 30-06, about 150 grain projectile traveling about 2,800 feet per second. M1 Carbine, 30 caliber carbine in the middle. Got the 45 ACP right here. The 45 ACP is a pistol round that's about 230 grains, moving about 900 feet per second, but that is a hard-hitting projectile at close range. The 30 caliber carbine is 110 grains, moving at about 1,990 feet per second. So it's smaller, but it is moving at a higher velocity. It's pretty good for medium range, more accurate than the pistol. And you can see just a large difference between these three rounds, but they all serve their own unique purpose. That 30-06, though, let me tell you what, that is a beast of a round, especially for the World War II era. And that's a beast of a pistol round. M1 Carbine's just kind of hanging there in the middle. Real good velocity for what it is, but we'll move on. So some more about the M1 Carbine. As we said before, it is a light, handy, and simple-to-use firearm. It fires, as we just saw, the 30 carbine round, which is 7.62 by 33 millimeter. It was designed during the years of 1938 to 1941. It was produced from July 1942 through August of 1945, and it is still commercially produced to this day. It was in U.S. military service from 1942 through 1973, where it served the United States in World War II, Korea, and even well into the Vietnam War. A little over 6 million were produced during the World War II era at the cost of about $45 per rifle. And if you know anything about collecting or if you're out shopping for these rifles, might want to add about $1,200 to that $45 price tag, and you'll know about how much those are worth nowadays. The variants of this firearm are the M1A1, the M1A3, the M2, the M2A2, and the M3. We can go over all those variants in a later video, just trying to give some basic information about this little rifle here in this first video. This rifle unloaded weighs 5.2 pounds and a little under 6 pounds loaded and with a sling. The length is 35.6 inches with a barrel length of 18 inches. It is a gas-operated short-stroke piston rifle with a rotating bolt, and it's got a rate of fire of about 750 rounds per minute in semi-auto. The muzzle velocity of standard rounds is just under 2,000 feet per second, and this rifle utilizes a 15 or the later 30-round detachable box magazines. The effective range of this weapon is about 300 yards, although 200 yards is considered to be the practical effective range of this rifle. The original configuration for the M1 Carbine included a flip-type rear sight that was set for 150 yards for the short range, and you flipped it for the 300-yard long-range peep sight. This rear sight was replaced in 1944 due to the flip sight being considered inadequate, and a new sliding adjustable ramp sight was used, as you see on this rifle here. The new sight yielded settings for 100, 200, 250, and 300 yards. Also, windage adjustment was available with this new sight. When the rifle first came out with the flip sight and everything, there was no bayonet lug. You can see on the barrel of this rifle here that the bayonet lug has been added. The weapon, though, when it was first issued without the bayonet lug, was issued with an M3 fighting knife or even a bayonet converted to a fighting knife. But due to requests from the field, a bayonet lug was added to the barrel band beginning in 1945, and very few of these made it to the front lines before World War II had ended. But by the start of the Korean War, the bayonet lug was standard issue on the rifle. Another change to the rifle was the safety. As we saw earlier, this rifle has the flip safety. Now, the Carbine originally had a push-button safety that was near the magazine release, and these two buttons would at times be confused, resulting in the magazine falling out instead of the weapon being rendered ready to fire. But now let's switch gears and talk a little bit more about the .30 caliber carbine round itself. The .30 caliber carbine round is a rimless version of the cartridge used in the Winchester Model 1905 rifle, called the .32 Winchester self-loader, whatever. The .30 caliber carbine used a more modern propellant and boasts 27% more power than the .32 self-loading. A standard carbine bullet weighs 110 grains, and when fired from the rifle, it has a muzzle velocity of 1,990 feet per second and approximately 967 foot-pounds of energy. Due to the weapon having a closed gas system, non-corrosive primers were used, and this was the first time that a non-corrosive primer was used on a major scale for the military. Now, this .30 carbine round has kind of caught some flack in the past, and even to this day, people want to say that it's an underpowered round. Now, can this .30 carbine round compete with the .30-06 for power and long-range accuracy? No, it can't. But is it also higher velocity and more accurate at a little bit longer ranges than the 45 ACP? Yes, and keep in mind that's what this weapon system was created for. You know, this rifle was made for people behind the lines, like medics, officers, even cooks. I mean, just whoever needed a weapon, didn't want to carry the pistol, needed something that could reach out a little further. That's what the M1 Carbine was created for. But this rifle did make its way to the front lines very quickly because the troops loved the light weight, the handiness of it, the fact that it carried a 15-round magazine. And here in a second, I'm going to show you the 30-round magazine that was utilized later on for the select fire versions that could fire in full auto. Here's one right here. This is a 30-round magazine. You can tell it's a lot larger. This is a Korean-made one, current manufacturing. Used it several times. Works great. Haven't had a failure out of it yet. I recommend shooting good quality ammo out of these rifles. A lot of manufacturers make it. You've got Winchester, you've got American Eagle, you've got Magtech, Remington. Armscore, I believe, makes it as well. Lots of different manufacturers. There's even some companies that make steel cased. I've shot some of it out of my rifle. I pretty much stick with brass now, but do so with your own discretion. Now let's get a brief overview of who manufactured the M1 Carbine under military contract. We have the biggest producer, which is Inland Division of General Motors. They produced 2,632,097 rifles. And they were also the sole producer of the M1A1 Carbine, which is the folding paratrooper stock version of the rifle. The receiver is marked Inland Division. Next up, the Winchester repeating arms. That's a rifle of mine that you see. 828,059 were made, and the receiver is marked Winchester. Next up, Irwin Penderson, which is operated by Saginaw Steering Gear. Their production are going to be included here in the Saginaw total. So Saginaw Steering Gear Division of General Motors, they produced 517,213 rifles. Now, Irwin Penderson marked receivers number 146,723. Next up, we have Underwood Elliott Fisher, 545,616 rifles made. These are marked Underwood on the receiver. National Postal Meter, they produced 413,017 rifles, and they are marked National Postal Meter. Next up, we have Quality Hardware Manufacturing Corporation. They produced 359,666 rifles marked Quality HMC on the receiver. Another interesting one is IBM, which stands for International Business Machines. They produced 346,500 rifles, and they were marked IBM Corporation on the receiver. Next up, we have Standard Products. They produced 247,100. They are marked STD.Pro. A really cool one is Rockola, the jukebox company. They created 228,500. These were marked Rockola. And another lesser-known one is the Commercial Controls Corporation. They made 239 rifles marked Commercial Controls. If you have an original one of those and it's validated, let me tell you what, you've got a very rare rifle. Now, of course, there are lots of commercial copies that exist, and there's a lot of them that are currently being manufactured. You've got your Plainfields, Universals. I know Auto Ordnance is currently making copies of them that are pretty nice, actually. But you just can't beat the good old GI, World War II manufactured, Korea War era, even Vietnam era. Just the real deal M1 carbines. They're just great. And I love the collectability of them, and there's so much information out there about them. They're just a fun rifle. Lastly here, the Winchester carbine that's featured in this video. The serial number puts it as being produced between February and November of 1944. So the receiver, at least, I would imagine probably saw some action somewhere out there. I tell you what, like many collectors say, if these rifles could talk, what kind of a story would they tell? Well, that about does it for this video. I wanted to keep it short and sweet, bring out some information. I'm not an expert by any means, so if I said anything in error, please contact me and I'll correct it. But once again, I appreciate you listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.